Good evening and welcome to the San Bruno City Council meeting of September 26, 2017. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Marty Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Rico Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Irene O'Connell.
Here.
Vice Mayor Ibarra.
Here.
Mayor Ruane.
Mark Zapparano, would you lead us in the pledge, please? We do have an announcement this evening. A candidate forum will be held at the San Bruno Senior Center on Wednesday, October 11th at 7 p.m. It will be moderated by the League of Women Voters and televised live on San Bruno Cable TV Channel 1. We have a couple of presentations this evening. The first is to present a proclamation to declare September 2017 as Fire Prevention Month. And I'll read this. Whereas the City of San Bruno is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire, and whereas the San Bruno Fire Department is dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and public education, and whereas residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, and whereas residents who have operational smoke alarms and have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and therefore more likely to survive a fire, and whereas the 2017 Fire Prevention Week theme, Every Second Counts, Plan 2 Ways Out, effectively serves to remind us all of the simple actions we can take to stay safer from fire during Fire Prevention Week, and year-round is an important message for all citizens of San Bruno. Now, therefore, I, Jim Ruane, the Mayor of the City of San Bruno, do hereby proclaim the week of October 8th to the 14th, 2017 as Fire Prevention Week. And Rico, would you please present this to our Chief? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. October is always an exciting time for the fire department with Fire Prevention Month because it's also time for our annual fire prevention poster contest. And so this is our 64th annual contest. The city distributes materials for the annual poster award contest to our public and private schools from kindergarten through 6th grade. Students create a poster based on the theme this year, which is Every Second Counts, Plan 2 Ways Out. We had 642 participants this year, and we're going to give out about 300 ribbons and certificates of merit to the students whose artwork most reflect the theme's message during assemblies at each school. The awards will be distributed to the school by fire department personnel. We'll also discuss the theme as well as do a fire drill at each school where we visit. And the student posters earning certificates of merit are displayed on City Cable Channel 11 cable network during the month of October. In addition to the poster award contest and our school assemblies, the fire department will also be hosting an open house on Saturday, October 21st from 11 to 2. It'll include fire engine displays, truck displays, demonstrations on CPR. CERT will be passing out emergency preparedness information as well as fire safety information. And we'll have a limited supply of bike helmets and smoke alarms to distribute. So that information is on our website, and we welcome everybody there, and thank you. And be safe this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We do have a very special presentation this evening. We're going to present a Distinguished Service Medal to San Bruno Police Officer Tommy Ledesma for actions taken to prevent the great bodily injury or death of a San Bruno resident. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Police Department Distinguished Service Medal is issued to any police department employee who distinguishes himself or herself in the performance of such employee's duties under unusual, complicated, or hazardous conditions where the employee used excellent judgment in accomplishing an assigned mission. This may also be awarded to any employee whose actions and training directly result in the saving or preventing the loss of a human life. An Officer Ledesma citation for this award, it reads that on June 25th, 2017 at 1:41 a.m., Officer Ledesma responded with other officers to a residence in San Bruno regarding the report of a family disturbance. Upon their arrival, officers encountered a distraught subject sitting on the edge of a bedroom window. The subject's legs were dangling outside of the window, and he was threatening to harm himself by jumping. The drop from the window to the ground below was approximately 30 feet. Officer Ledesma, who has received critical or crisis intervention training, spoke with this subject for approximately 20 minutes. As Officer Ledesma spoke with the subject, he noticed that the subject's emotional state changed quickly and dramatically, and it was evident that his mental condition was unstable. By continuing to engage this subject in conversation, Officer Ledesma established an excellent rapport in an effort to keep him from jumping from the ledge. At one point, Officer Ledesma was very close to the subject and handed him a cigarette. Officer Ledesma recounted that he had considered grabbing the subject at that point, but he was not sure that he would have been able to secure the subject in his grip, so he decided against it. Following approximately 20 more minutes of talking to this subject, Officer Ledesma noticed the subject momentarily step away from the ledge to look for a lighter that Officer Ledesma had provided to him earlier. Prior to stepping away from the ledge, the subject admonished Officer Ledesma and told him not to try anything. As the subject made his movement, Officer Ledesma threw himself towards the subject and placed himself between the subject and the window ledge. Officer Ledesma later noted that as he took this action, he could clearly see the subject recognize his own movement and attempt to move back towards the window ledge. Officer Ledesma quickly secured the subject without incident or injury, and the subject was transported to a local hospital for much-needed treatment. Officer Ledesma's actions in this instance certainly prevented the serious injury or even death of a young person in crisis. Furthermore, these actions clearly meet the criteria set forth in our policy for the issuance of the Distinguished Service Medal. So at this point, I'd like to invite a member of the council to award Officer Ledesma. Tommy, you want to step up?
Would you like to tell us something? Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Very well deserved. Item number 5, review of this agenda. I would like to move item 11, which is our senior advisory report, to right before item number 8, public hearings, and move item 10E, under conduct of business, to be the first item under conduct of business. That's I'm sorry. D, under conduct of business to be the first item under conduct of business, which is the recology issue. Anything else on the agenda? Okay. Approval of the minutes of the special and regular council meetings of September 12, 2017. Any errors, corrections, or omissions?
Through the chair,
Ken?
just like to make a correction that on the special meeting, I was not in attendance. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Seeing none, to be approved as submitted and as noted. The consent calendar, all items are considered routine or implemented earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested. Anything on consent?
Mayor?
Marty?
Items F and G.
F and G. Anything else?
Nothing else. Move to approve the rest of the consent.
Second.
Motion and second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Item F, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager and city attorney to execute escrow documents to accept donation of real property for Earl Glenview Park. Marty?
I pulled this item because it really is a significant action from the from the property owner for the donation, and it really deserves some additional recognition. And so if we could please have a summary of that, we'd appreciate it.
Certainly. This is an item that to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager and myself to execute escrow documents for the acquisition of the property at the, I want to say, 1680, thank you very much, 1670 Claremont Drive. So this is the former Grieg property. You may recall that Janessa and Jacqueline Grieg tragically perished at that property during the PG&E pipeline explosion, and the Grieg family had indicated an interest in transferring, donating that property to the city and having the city add it as part of the reconstruction of the Earl Glenview Park. And I'm very pleased to report that the Grieg family and the city has reached an agreement regarding that donation agreement. There will be no cost to the city except for some relatively minimal escrow and other fees that are outlined in the staff report that will be covered by the PG&E trust that was established. So the Grieg family was in contact with the city regarding the design of the park, and as I think the staff report indicates, there'll be memorial plaques in the park commemorating the families who lost loved ones in the explosion. And so that's a brief summary of it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anything from Mark? Action on item F.
If I might just add
sorry.
something, Mr. Mayor, just very quickly. The city attorney has done a good job of representing this particular item, but I wanted to also just note for the city council's information that the Bullis family as well, although that those circumstances were different and the city did purchase that lot from the families or from the estate of the 3 persons who tragically perished in the fire. They similarly have a very, very strong interest in this. Development of the park is a truly meaningful opportunity for the families who lost loved ones and for the entire neighborhood. So we are very excited about moving forward with these steps and piece by piece now on the cusp of actually being able to celebrate that park, and we look forward to alerting you as soon as we've been able to identify a proposed date for a groundbreaking.
Thank you. Action on F.
Move to approve item F.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 7G is adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a 3-year agreement with Rec 1 for recreation registration and facilities reservation software and support in the amount of $62,800. Marty?
So I pulled this item to have staff discuss by their hard effort to find ways to improve an existing system and save money while doing that. And I think that deserves some recognition, and I think it's great that we could hear a little bit about it, because I went and checked it out to the Alhambra City website, and it seems super easy on what this new software will do for us.
Great. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Danielle Brewer, and I'm the Community Services Superintendent. Before you tonight is a resolution to enter into an agreement with Rec 1 for recreation registration and reservation software. The department has used the current system called ActiveNet since 2009. At the time, the system was the best option for the components needed by the department and by the community. In October of 2016, staff began a request for proposal process to find a new software company. Staff selected Rec 1 as the top choice. This program has all the components to meet the needs of the department, along with a user-friendly interface, cloud-based hosting, credit card vendor flexibility, and a reasonable flat fee pay structure. Rec 1 is unique in that the staff will be involved in designing the software to work with the department in a way that will be most useful for both the community and the staff. Rec 1 will also feature will also allow for the residents to have a convenient and user-friendly experience when enrolling for a program or a class, both in person and online. Residents will have full access to the online registration portal at no charge. The program will improve their experience and allow them to sign up for multiple classes, programs, and camps from the comfort of their own home if they choose. It will also allow them to share a link with their friends on social media about the class and the program they've signed up for. And those friends can then sign up directly from that social media link just by simply clicking on it. And this is a really useful marketing tool for the department and will make signing up for classes much easier for our residents. This is an improvement from the past system, as the convenience fee from the past system is about 7% to the resident. So if we had a parent actually come down, she was signing up for 10 weeks of camp for multiple children, she got all the way to the end, and that 7% convenience fee equaled more than a week of camp. So she backed out of it, and then she came down to the rec center and had to sign up for it, which, takes a little bit of time. So all that time wasted. So this is going to be so much easier for people to do. The annual cost for the ActiveNet was about $65,000 a year, and that's based on the transaction fees. So the more business we do, the higher the price is. So the more we grew, the higher the price is. So this new Rec 1 system is a $16,000 flat fee, $16,600, which is a flat fee per year. And then we're going to have a one-time cost of $13,000 this year for the training and the implementation and the data transfer and, we have to buy a new credit card machine, those kind of things. But the great thing is we'll be able to use the vendor we already have set up for the city with that credit card vendor. So it's going to result in a savings of about $36,000 for this year and then $49,000 for the next couple of years. This has been incorporated into our 17-18 operating budget.
Thank you very much for finding a way to save, close to $100,000? Thank you.
Action on item G.
Move to approve item G.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to get right into item number 11, which is the annual report from the Senior Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the City Council, my name is Bill Hayes, and I would like to give the San Bruno Senior Citizens Advisory Board 2017 Annual Report. Should we go to the second slide, Daniel? Thank you. The Senior Citizens Advisory Board provides input and makes recommendations to the City Council regarding programs and activities at the Senior Center. Members of the board work with staff to ensure the Senior Center is a vibrant and welcoming place that contributes to the health and well-being of older adults. From left to right, I'm sorry, that's okay. From left to right, we have Flory Green, Barbara Lusage, our new member Herb Chu, Dorothy Carmichael, Karen Hornig, Joanne Tracy, and myself, Bill Hayes. Not pictured is Bill Goff. The Senior Center welcomed 72,950 senior visitors from July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017. In the picture, this was a trip that was taken to Lovely's Tea Shop in Pacifica, which we do day trips, and these folks were able to spend the day at Lovely's. We also provide information referral. The Senior Center responded to 316 requests for information related to insurance, food sources, legal referral, social services, health, and housing. The Senior Center also provides nutritious and affordable meals. The Senior Center last year, we did 24,728 meals to seniors from July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017. In the picture on the right is our newest member. His name is Robert. He's a part-time chef. He really likes what he's doing with us, and he hopes to continue providing nutritious meals. We address the transportation needs for our seniors. The Senior Center transported 2,771 seniors from their homes to the Senior Center from July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017. This is a very valuable resource for our seniors. Many seniors that do not drive anymore, they really rely on us to come and pick them up, bring them to the Senior Center. They have the activities, and then we take them back home. I know one gentleman, his age is 96, comes every day. He comes to the Senior Center, he reads the paper, he takes a walk into the park. Right now, he goes down to the rec center, and then he gets picked up and brought home after lunch. I ask him what it is that makes his life, I guess, long, how he achieved longevity. He says, I get out and I walk every day. The San Bruno Nutrition Site Council is a nonprofit organization which fundraises at the Senior Center through the delivery of bingo games, cafe sales, and other fundraising activities. The Nutrition Site Council donates $100,000 annually to support the city's delivery of the nutrition and transportation program. Here's our funding summary for the year. Our general fund, $964,751. County Grant Nutrition and Transportation Program, $213,765. Program revenue from facility rentals, $38,000. Contribution from Nutrition Site Council, $100,000. Total program revenue, $1,316, and $1,316,516. Expenditures, Senior Center programs and activities, $1,102,751. Nutrition and transportation programs, $213,765. Total program expenditures, $1,316,516. And this is a snapshot of some of our most popular programs at the Senior Center. Bingo, which we offer Monday, Wednesday, Friday afternoons, and also Thursday nights. Bocce, which has always been a very popular program. Zumba, line dancing, and hiking. The Zumba classes are continuing to grow. We're getting a lot more folks coming down and being real active with our programs. In the past year, we had 137 volunteers donate nearly 33,900 hours of volunteer services. They did their work with the nutrition program, at the welcome desk, sports program, bingos, trips, and they do many other activities all through the day. At our September meeting, the Senior Advisory Board approved a motion requesting the entire floor in the multi-purpose room to be replaced after the completion of the construction to the Senior Center. We made this decision that in that way this room would be complete. It would almost be like new, so we thought it would be a good idea. The Senior Citizen Advisory Board further approved a motion expressing its preference to remain at the Veterans Memorial Recreation Center until the repairs of the Senior Center are completed, and that the temporary wall be constructed in the multi-purpose room to allow greater nutrition, site council, bingo attendance, and fundraising, along with the classes. Many classes here, they do need a lot of room, especially the exercise classes. Our accomplishments for the year: relocation and continuation of the senior services following the June 19th, 2017 vehicle accident and damage to the Senior Center. This relocation was done in just 4 days. I really want to commend staff for their organization, getting St. Robert's to let us use their facility. We were up and running the next Monday, and it was great that our seniors had a place to go. The other accomplishments: offered one or more informational and referral presentations per month, including Senior Scam Stopper, Memory and Aging, Legal Aid Society, and HIP Housing Home Sharing. We introduced one new recipe per month to the lunch program. We work with staff to review bylaws and recommend amendments to City Council. We formed a subcommittee to assist in the evaluation of senior center maintenance needs and future improvements. Our goals for the coming year: we'd like to expand the dance program to include a quarterly baby boomer dance to attract younger active adults. We'd like to implement an intergenerational volunteer program for teenagers to engage with senior citizens to build multi-generational connections. Offer performances, demonstrations, and safety seminars during the lunch program to expand participation and showcase enrichment and healthy activities. We'd also like to offer an anti-bullying training seminar to provide seniors with the skills and information necessary to address unwelcome interactions. On June 25th, 2017, we lost one of our longtime volunteers. Kenny was on the Senior Advisory Board. He was active at the Senior Center as a volunteer and part-time city employee who was active in bocce ball, horseshoes, ping pong, softball. If there was a sport, Kenny was involved with it. He was involved with the bingo, daily bread pickups, lunch services, karaoke, and much more. He also was a devoted volunteer in community sports, especially with San Bruno Youth Baseball and Cappuccino High School. He was the two-time recipient of the Parks and Recreation Commission Community Recognition Award in 1996 and 2006. He will be greatly missed. And that is my report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Bill? I guess not. I guess not. Right.
I did.
Encore.
Jim?
That's a good re-entrance. I like how you did that.
It was quick.
Any questions for Bill at this time? No? Irene?
I do. Thank you very, very much for the support. I know the whole of San Bruno is very proud of the Senior Center, and you guys do a fabulous job. I was wondering if you might consider having some kind of a study session or a session about fraud that is particularly geared to targeting seniors. I know there's a lot out there, and I know that many seniors have come to it, so that might be something to think about.
Great, thank you.
Good. Anything else? Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Mark, procedurally, and with the pleasure of the council, I would like to move another item up to before public hearings, and that is item 10E regarding recology. I see a lot of people here. Is it D? Yeah. Oh, I have E here. See. Anyway, my fault. D, because I see a lot of people here that I know wake up very early. So why don't we just do that? That is, adopt a resolution amending franchise agreement with Recology San Bruno related to option to extend term for 5-year period.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, the current franchise agreement with Recology San Bruno became effective in 1998. And as you well know, Recology collects, processes, transfers, and disposes of solid waste, recyclable materials, and organics here in the city of San Bruno. The franchise agreement, as I indicated, was adopted in 1998, was approved in 1998, and it has been amended 8 times during that time, related to AB 939 fees, the allocation, financial allocation of debris box service costs, landfill location. In one instance, there was an amendment related to an option to extend the term of the agreement, and that was actually exercising 2 of the options that are provided within the agreement. So there was those options extended the agreement for 10 years. As indicated, the firm has sent the city a letter dated August 4th, confirming their interest in exercising the third of those 5-year franchise extension options that are provided for in the agreement, which would extend the franchise term through June of 2024. So the item and the resolution before you is an amendment number 9, if the City Council would approve, which reterms the agreement to run through June of 2024 and makes note under Section 3.5 that the contractor would have no additional option to extend the agreement. So the options would be fully exercised and Section 3.5 would, in essence, be eliminated. So that is the item before you. The city manager has a couple of comments to make, and there are representatives of Recology here that would then be available to address this matter.
So, as a staff report, the written staff report indicates this matter was previously reviewed by the City Council's ad hoc subcommittee. That subcommittee met with staff and heard from Recology as well to understand exactly the thought process behind the current request for extension as outlined in the franchise agreement. And the subcommittee did not reach a consensus recommendation to the City Council. There was, the two subcommittee members had two different opinions. One of the discussion items that was considered at that subcommittee meeting was the possibility of rebidding the contract and or entering into direct negotiations with Recology for a new franchise and a new franchise term. And I wanted to make a couple of comments because I've had the opportunity since that time to gather a little bit of information from experts in this field regarding the timeline, the process, and the cost for a complete reopen or rebidding of the garbage franchise. As council members are probably aware from news reports that you may have seen, this is a very time-consuming and exhaustive work process that both takes, as I said, a long time, but is also very costly. And in speaking with a consulting team that does this work on a regular basis and without prompting in any particular direction, I think the information that I received might be helpful to the City Council's deliberations this evening. First of all, the persons that I talked to indicated that the process can typically take and usually does take between 9 and 12 months. And again, that's a very rigorous process that involves the development, circulation, and vetting of proposals from firms in the industry, as well as in a fairly extensive process for developing the franchise itself, whether that be by negotiation or by direct effort simply to capture in that franchise those issues that are of interest and value to the franchising agency, in this case us. And it is recommended, and typically it is done, that an 18-month period be utilized. In other words, that any effort to rebid the franchise would begin at least 18 months in advance of the expiration of the existing franchise term, both to provide adequate time for that 9 to 12-month process, as I indicated, as well as to provide an adequate amount of time for the selected franchise hauler to ramp up and to be ready immediately when the franchise term expires. As the City Council is aware, our franchise currently expires absent an extension, as is under discussion this evening, on June 30th of 2019. So we are, and our franchise terms provide for consideration of the extension at this time, precisely in consideration of the timeframes that I allowed, that are that I identified that are the industry standard for that kind of work. On the cost side, I asked the firm what is your typical cost, and what is the typical total cost to an agency that wishes to rebid a franchise and to undertake that work effort. And the answer that I received is that the costs are typically divided between the consultant who assists with the front end of the process, the development of the request for proposals, or the bid documents, if you will, and works with the municipality to advertise and review the responses. And those costs are roughly half of the total amount, at between $125,000 and $150,000. You double that amount when you add to it the legal costs, which typically run about generally the same amount. So we end up with a range of total costs between $250,000, $350,000, and it's not uncommon for those costs, depending on the process, to be as much as $400,000 or more. I did not solicit this comment, but was surprised to hear that, in fact, in this consultant's experience, that it is not uncommon and more the case than not that rates increase as a result of the bidding process, and it is not uncommon, and we've seen two recent examples in our little area here in the not too distant past, where the city goes through the procedure, spends the time, pays the money for the work, and while the process has comprehensively vetted proposals, ends up with the same hauler. That has happened twice recently in our county, the most recent time being as recently as earlier this month. So that is just simply information for the City Council's consideration, because we would like, of course, for the City Council to provide any direction relevant to whichever path you would wish to proceed, because time could be of the essence if the City Council does not determine that it is in the city's interest to proceed with an extension of the franchise pursuant to the existing franchise provisions.
Okay.
I believe that representatives of Recology are here this evening and have a couple of comments for you to round out the report, and then we would be happy to take your questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay.
Very
Rico?
quick to the City Manager. Can you, just for the public, because they don't have the staff report, who the two members of the subcommittee are? You can mention those, and is it possible to mention the two cities that are in the county that you just
Sure, I'm
stated?
happy to do that. The two members of the subcommittee are Mayor Ruane and Councilmember Marty Medina, and the two cities that I referenced are Daly City and Half Moon Bay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for staff at this time? Why don't we hear from Recology?
Honorable Mayor, members of council, city staff, and the audience tonight. My name is Mario Puccinelli, and I am a Vice President and General Group Manager for Recology, and I began my career 18 years ago, right here, my managerial career right here in San Bruno. So it's good to be home, but I can tell you I never had an audience such as this. So with that, as staff has accurately described, we are here tonight to address the procedural item before you, and that is to extend our contract as outlined in our contract with the city for an additional 5 years. And while we have been your contracted service provider for over 60 years, we have been partners with the community that we serve here in San Bruno. And we take pride in giving back to the communities that we serve while providing the highest levels of customer service at the most competitive rates. And so now I'd like to have Kirsten Pinocchi, our General Manager of Recology San Bruno, come up and say a few words as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for allowing us to take a moment and speak with you tonight. I want to commend, we have a lot of people here on our behalf, and we have a lot of our drivers right here in the audience tonight as well, and I want to thank them for taking the time out. They were up very early this morning. Mario mentioned the word partnership, and this is exemplified by our work with the city on the abandoned waste program. For the past year and a half, we've partnered with the city to collect abandoned waste and illegally dumped material. We began to see trends in this behavior, and what we found through our communication with residents and our drivers is that there is a direct correlation between abandoned waste, or large bulky items like sofas and mattresses being left unattended, and the transient nature of move-in and move-outs from our mid-size multifamily dwellings that our franchise agreement currently does not contemplate. So to get to the root of the issue, Recology would like to expand that and allow for mid-size apartments to be allowed to have bulky item pickups with no additional charge, or provide our customers with reuse options to increase our diversion efforts even farther. We would like to create outreach materials as well as to inform those mid-size apartments of this expanded program. Together, we're hoping to continue to reduce the amount of illegal dumping and to beautify our wonderful city. We also wanted to make mention of the tremendous success we've had partnering with our commercial businesses in San Bruno. A few of them are actually here tonight. We are proud to report that the City of San Bruno is 100% compliant in regards to AB 341, and tremendous improvements continue with our AB 1826, which is the Organics Ordinance, and we look forward to continuing our outreach and education and to exceed the expectations of Cal Recycle. Again, we thank you for your time this evening, and we look forward to our continued partnership with the City of San Bruno.
Thank you. Any questions for staff or Recology at this time? No? Anyone from the public like to talk to us?
Hello, I'm Steve from Mastic Avenue, and I really like what Kirsten's talking about in terms of the apartment mid-size and large garbage pickups. I think that's great. I think that's going to do a lot for the neighborhoods where we do see the dumping. But I'd like to also ask if maybe in some of the neighborhoods, particularly the one I live in and others near me, there is dumping that happens that's not right outside of these apartments where there's this transient nature. And maybe we could also work that in. So like if there's a driver who's, I'll give an example, who's driving down Huntington and then coming up San Felipe. There's an area right there on the corner that often there seems to be stuff that just gets laid or gets left, and it's right near the, well, there are other areas too on the east side, and I'm sure up in the Rollingwood area and stuff like that. Maybe if we had a habit where we drove by and we picked up some of that stuff that's coming not from these transient nature apartments, it might help to beautify and make our city better. And that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate what you're doing.
Hi, my name is Val Morgan. Good evening, Mayor and city members, council members, and all here. I would like to support re-entering the contract with Recology San Bruno. They've been very supportive to our community and our conservation committee since its inception over 3 years ago. They have attended and spoke at many of our board meetings and committee meetings. They've kept us supplied with totes, recycled bags, compost pails, information and advice, and they and our management have contributed greatly to the success of our committee. I have one request, though, and that is that ecology and any other essential services do everything in their power to keep costs down, because our committee does its utmost to conserve electricity, water, waste, everything. But no matter what we do, costs keep rising. I know it's hard to beat that, but it's a bit disheartening. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and friends and public here. My name is Dr. Regina Stampeck-Stroud. I am the president at Skyline College. And I'm here to support the re-entry in the agreement for Recology, but I'm probably going to give you a little different slant of a reason. I have had the pleasure of being with Skyline College since 2001. That means about 16 years ago when I joined as the Vice President of Instruction. I had firsthand opportunity to witness what it means to be a good corporate citizen in the city of San Bruno. You see, Mr. Puccinelli was my partner in a leadership institute, and so even at that point, Recology was very, very supportive of the college and the ways in which it connected with the community and developed leaders for this area. But that's not all. On the President's Council for many, many years has served Kirsten Pinocchi. And it's not just service on the President's Council where we have the President's Breakfast and invite 400 of our closest friends and loved ones to the breakfast in order to raise money to support the education of San Bruno residents. It's also the support of the Success Summit, which addresses issues in the North County, such as transportation and housing and those types of things. Recology has been wholeheartedly supportive of the college in doing those things. So it's not that it's necessarily just because they support the college, but because they demonstrate on a regular basis what it means to be a good corporate citizen and their responsibility to make sure they're not just here in the area, but they are actually making a contribution to the area as well. So yes, they do the work, they meet their missions, but they also support us in terms of being a part of the city. Skyline College has a value system that is based on environmental sustainability and making sure that we subscribe to those tenets of sustainability, and our relationships and partnerships with Recology are things that help us make that real, make us realize that value and live up to our mission. So with any questions, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to elaborate more, but I just want to come in and say that we absolutely support this.
Thank you, Regina.
All right, thank you.
Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. I support the extension, and I just wanted to remind people that about a year ago, Recology came to us and said if the city amends the current agreement and lets them change where they are dumping their material, that it will save us money and that they will pass that rate through, the savings through to the residents. Instead of going, I'm going to use a number, instead of going 2% increase, they were able to go at 1.5 or something. So they passed the savings on to the city. They didn't have to do that. They could have stayed the way it was, dumped it where it was, and we would have paid more. So they're very proactive.
Thank you.
Larry Franzella, Crestmore Drive. I would just like to urge that you pass the extension. It hardly seems worth the time and effort and the financial resources for something that's working. It's one of the services that really works well in this city. I could outline a few that maybe you want to spend a couple $100,000 on. So just sign it and extend it. It's my recommendation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? All right. I'd like to see how the council feels about this. Marty?
Right. So I had a difference of opinion. Okay. I'll be straightforward about it. We did not receive the information on the costs that we just received tonight about, or the time that it would take to do any type of rebidding. $400,000 is a substantial amount of money. My objection to immediately agreeing to the extension is not based on the service that any of you provide. It's not based on any of the community service that you provide. I made it very clear to Kirsten and Mario in the meeting that you guys do a wonderful job. I have heard numerous complaints about how San Bruno extends contracts and how we have yearly increases that are pretty much automatic. But not once have I ever heard a complaint about the service. So I want to make that absolutely clear. I feel as an elected that is my responsibility at every point to try to find a way to make something better for our city. In every contract that we get and every service that we provide, I feel that I should be trying to find a way to make it better for everybody. In this contract, as we were moving forward with it, my point in the meeting, as I told Kirsten and Mario, was what can we do to make a better deal for San Bruno? If it comes down to rebidding, that's one thing, because a lot of people don't understand, as has been pointed out, that rebidding doesn't mean you get better service. It could mean you get a better price, but there's no guaranteeing in that. And in my first evaluation of rebidding, it would provide an opportunity for all the residents to know this is the best price that you can get based on the bids that we receive. So at that point, I was hoping that we could look into negotiating some of those benefits. Today, I heard for the first time that I heard for the first time that you're expanding the pickup. So that's a good thing too. So at no cost. Well, that's the question, is that something always costs, right? Because we pay for it one way or the other. Kirsten, is that absolutely true, that that cost for the additional pickups at no point gets put into the bottom line of the additional service that we pay? Is that correct?
Yeah, we're not going to charge the city directly. We're not going to charge the customers for those pickups. It will all end up in some sort of disposal unless we can reuse those items, which is our first intention.
Right. So the other thing I was hoping that we could possibly negotiate, because at that point, I was reminded that the meeting that we were having was only to discuss the particulars of the extension, not to negotiate, correct? O'Leary, right? You stopped me when I was saying, well, maybe we should just start negotiating an extension. If understanding how good the service is and possible the price, how can we look at getting more for the city? And what I was interested in is I'm noticing downtown that our containers are full on the weekends and they're not being serviced. So I don't know if this is proper now, if we can negotiate in this manner, but I would like to see the garbage picked up on the weekends. I don't know how we need to do that, if Recology is willing to help us out on that, but I'm looking for a better deal. And I think that's what we all should be looking at for. And we don't have to go out to bid to get a better deal. We could enter negotiations on this extension and possibly look into a further extension. So that's what I want to make it absolutely clear to everybody that's here. My garbage gets picked up every Friday, no problem, right? I have no problem with that. I'm just looking out for a better deal at every opportunity that I can get. That was my objection to the contract extension.
Okay, Rico?
Yeah, a few things. In regards to this, obviously there's a cost. What hasn't been defined is where those monies would come from, the $250,000 to $350,000. Were they budgeted for it? The answer is no. Where would they come from? Reserves, general fund reserves. Those are monies that are usually set aside for emergencies, situations that deal with very pertinent issues that face our community. I'm not one who likes to dip in reserves. We do that because there's a critical issue at hand, that there's an emergency. What we would be doing is getting an RFP together. What I would want to see is, if that were even to happen, is that the RFP very clear that it becomes a union and it stays a union, not beyond the 90 days that's required by law. Because somebody can come in and on the 91st day change all that. So, because you do get a quality service. We do have these folks who work and live in San Bruno. And we want to certainly maintain that cost of living and that lifestyle and the ability and affordability to be here in this community. I think what should be done is if we know something's coming up, we need to budget for it. Let's plan for it accordingly, according to a timeline. The 18 months too is because if it takes 12 months, like staff was saying, and then you want to change to somebody else, then it takes time to get them up to speed. So again, there is no guarantee. There's a hope that we can go out for an RFP, spend the $350,000 potentially, spend the staff time and resources, and we may get the same, we may get better, and we may get less. But it's a hope, and a hope is not a plan. And it's not my money to spend $350,000. When I've been out talking to residents, I do not hear about recology. I do not hear about the garbage company. I hear about the water and sewer rates. That is what I hear. And I can tell you firsthand, because I have been walking and talking. Met the nice lady, Ms. Zink, who's running for mayor Monday. She says the same thing. So, it's not just me hearing it, it's somebody else as well running for the same office. They have been with us for over 60 years. This has never been San Bruno's Garbage Company. Yes, it was called it at a time, but it was not, quote, San Bruno Garbage Company. There's sometimes that belief. I appreciate on the abandoned waste to increase that at no cost. I appreciate that Recology has stepped up when we've asked for them to have garbage pickups to a lot of the areas that have been neglected and have been trashed. And they have stepped up to the plate. So for me, very clearly, to have an RFP that goes out, that ensures the union job at union wages, and we spend the resources of our staff time and those reserves, that there is no guarantee. I am not into paying the taxpayers' dollars in reserves for something that there is no guarantee. And if the city of Daly City can tell you that they went through the process, the emotion, and the potential, and they ended up staying with the same garbage company. So, history, I do not want it repeated. I am in favor of extending the agreement. And it will then get rid of section 3.5, and then in 2024, we plan ahead, we budget accordingly, and we do this thing correctly. And that's what I believe should be done, and I am in favor of extending.
Thank you. Irene?
Thank you. I have a special relationship with Recology. I'm the president of or chairman of the Beautification Task Force Committee, and we put on Operation Clean Sweep. We've done it for 18 or 19 years now, and Recology has always been there for us. They come in, we send out, this last year we sent out 240 some people. They brought in tons of garbage, recycling. Recology picked it up, took it away. They always provide our lunch, which is separate from the garbage. They always are there. I pick up the phone and I say, you know, how about if we do this? How about if we need to beef up our education program in the elementary schools? What can we do to do that? Kirsten sat down with me. I see Miss Del Benny here, who was in Kirsten's place at one time. We would go out and engage the elementary schools and do it. And we are doing it more and more and again. So I appreciate the fact that people don't like paying higher rates. Nobody does. But you look around, what do the higher rates go to? They go to the salaries. They go to the health care that's always rising. They go to the gas prices that are always rising. They go to all those things. It's not money that just goes into someone's pocket. It goes out to pay all the other things that have raises. So that's how life goes. I'm in favor, obviously, of extending the program. I appreciate all the work that goes into a bid process. I've seen cities go through it. It's not a pretty picture. And again, there's no guarantee. In fact, Daly City, I believe, went through the process. Recology did bid on it. Recology actually, from my understanding from a council member at Daly City, Recology actually had a better package, but for some reason, the majority of the council bid the other way, or voted the other way. So it's just because you go through a bid process doesn't guarantee anything. So enough said. I appreciate what Recology has done. I know that they will be cooperative and good partners in the future. And I appreciate all those people who've come out and said their piece.
Ken?
Thank you, Irene. The word that Irene started her comments were a relationship. And as I arrived to the sunset of my term on this sitting on this council, the 21 years that I've spent on this council there's been a great relationship with Recology. Seeing Mario here, Tammy and Kirsten, seeing some of the truck drivers, Mike and Todd. I mean, this is a relationship that has grown over the years. And to now question, the costs, the financials and things, I just always felt comfortable that we had the financials, we had the experts looking over the papers, we had the contracts, we had the consultants, and everything was transparent on the up and up. And even then, on top of that, whenever there was a concern, whether it was Mario, whether it was Tim, whether it was Kirsten, they took care of it. There was no negotiations. They recognize it because they live here. And they see it, and they saw the importance of taking care of issues that would make the community better. So I agree with the former mayor, and this is something that we shouldn't even be, and I believe we haven't done in the previous extensions, that if anything, want to compliment Recology for what they've done over since 1994, 98 or whatever, and then and hopefully that will even improve and strengthen our relationship through 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. You can probably guess how I feel about this. I was the other member on the subcommittee, and I told Marty that evening. I said, a lot of times the reason you go out to bid is to make sure that the people you have are honest. Well, I have no qualms about that. These people are Recology, independently audited, if you will, checks and balances every few years by a totally independent firm. So we know factually we're getting the best deal that we can get. They came to us before, a couple of years ago, and said, we can save some money if we do this, if we do that. As Mr. Rico said, they didn't have to do that, but they did. They're great community members. They work with us in many different ways. And coming forward tonight and formally saying that they're going to help us get rid of some of this street garbage, when in fact they did that pretty much on their own with a phone call over the last numbers of months, should give you an indication of where their heart is in this community. So I have no qualms at all. I'm for the extension. So any other discussion? Is there some action by the council? Marty?
So like I said earlier, it has nothing to do about the quality of the service, the commitment to the community, okay? I want to make that absolutely clear. This $400,000 potential cost wasn't disclosed in this meeting that we had, okay? Right? Right. So what also I think the public may not understand is every garbage contract that's out there has these automatic rate increases based on inflation, correct? Right? Can we have staff confirm that? I mean, it helps explain when people say, hey, they automatically get to increase the rates. Well, yeah, that's in the contract, and it's not just in Recology's contract. It's a standard rate increase for all garbage haulers.
All that I'm aware of all have some form of cost increase that would be effective annually.
Okay. So that's important for people to understand, that it's not that they just automatically get to say, yes, and we're going to increase the rates. It's in the contract based on the operating costs, right? So I have no problem sitting here today and saying, we got something more from the meeting I attended in August 30th. I would be interested in seeing if we could get additional service from Recology to come downtown to clean that, and I would be easily swayed to say, yeah, I got a little bit more out of it. We got a better deal. So I don't know the procedure, how I could possibly do that, or something that we could discuss at a later time, and I could put I guess make a resolution, or I don't know if our finance director could give me any input on how that could be possibly done, that we could negotiate that part of it, that part of the contract.
Could you repeat the part that you specifically would like to renegotiate?
I want to see garbage picked up on the weekends downtown, because we have overflowing garbage receptacles, you know, and it'd be nice to see that someone was more capable of doing that than what's happening now.
So we did discuss this at the subcommittee meeting, and we can definitely have a conversation with Recology and return information to the city council about that.
Right.
Rico?
Yeah, excuse me. Through the chair, my understanding is too, and I understand Mr. Medina trying to improve what we have and make things better, but to have open negotiations, it would be no different than us doing labor negotiations with city employees. I don't think this is the forum, the venue, it's not on the agenda. I believe that aspect that you're asking should go back to subcommittee and come back to the council as a whole.
Right.
Clarifying that the city manager just said that we could do that.
We will.
Okay.
Irene, you had a comment?
I just want to clarify what you're saying. I've been on San Mateo Avenue on the last Sunday of the month for the last 3 years, pretty much. I was there this last Sunday. I walked up and down. Val was there with me. There was one trash can that was slightly over the limit. I went, pushed it down, and it was done. Out of all the 40, I think there's 45 trash cans. So that might, I don't know if that is a problem per se. And of all this time now, in like I said, 3 years, maybe 4 or 5 trash cans have been over the top. So to negotiate to have union people come in on a weekend and to empty trash cans and to drive the trash, the truck up and down the street when people are trying to park and drive, and they do the double parking. I just don't think it's necessary, but that's my opinion.
Okay, not to cut anybody off, but the issue tonight is the extension, and we can talk further in the subcommittee about some things that you want going forward. Okay, so I think we've heard from everybody. Is there action by the council on this item?
I'd like to introduce the resolution.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Rico Medina?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ibarra?
Aye.
Mayor Ruane?
Aye. Thank you very much. You can get to bed and get up early. If you give you a minute. Thank you. No, start doing that in 10 minutes.
My phone is.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Bye, Regina.
Yeah.
You just turned around and noticed everybody's gone, huh?
Thank you. Okay, we're going to continue with public hearings. We have two public hearings this evening. First is to hold the public hearing and extend interim urgency ordinance regulating cultivation and prohibiting the manufacture, processing, laboratory testing, labeling, storing, wholesale, and retail distribution of non-medical marijuana pursuant to Government Code Section 65858A. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This is back at the City Council's direction to extend the moratorium on commercial marijuana activities in the city. You might all remember that Proposition 64 that was passed by a majority of the voters at the last election, would allow most of those commercial activities unless the city were to either ban or regulate them before January 1st of next year. As we discussed last time, the state regulations are still not out yet. We don't know when they're going to be out. But when they do come out, they would cover both medical and non-medical commercial marijuana activities. As you also know, the city already has an ordinance banning medical marijuana distribution facilities or collective cultivations throughout the city. At the last meeting, the City Council suggested that we should extend the current moratorium, which would otherwise expire on the 25th of October of this year, for another year until October 25th of 2018. And the reason for that was severalfold. First of all, we would want to find out what the state regulations actually say, because nobody has seen them yet, and those aren't expected to be out until much later this year. And then furthermore, it would allow the city time to study what, if any, regulations it might want to adopt with respect to allowing some degree of commercial marijuana activities in the city. You can extend the current moratorium with a 4/5 vote, and that would extend the moratorium, as I mentioned, to October 25th of 2018. You can, at any time during that time, terminate the moratorium sooner than that. You can adopt a different ordinance of any kind, and that would be just subject to the direction of the City Council. What is currently allowed right now in the city is, of course, the use, possession, ingestion of marijuana that is allowed by state law. There's state law limits on that for either medical or non-medical use. So this moratorium does not affect anybody's ability to use marijuana, subject to whatever state law says, and then also subject to the city's smoking ordinance. So if you can't smoke a cigarette, you can't smoke marijuana. And that will go into effect, as you may recall, in February of next year for multi-unit residences. But aside from that, all other ingestion of marijuana is otherwise allowed in the city. In addition, Proposition 64 allows indoor cultivation of up to no more than 6 plants for use by an adult over the age of 21 who lives at the residence, and that's just for personal use. So the city can't ban that. Prop 64 says you have to allow that. So aside from those two things, the moratorium would prohibit other commercial activities such as distribution, testing, sales, dispensaries, and so on. So the action before you tonight would be to hold a public hearing, take public input, and then we would be looking for a motion to adopt the extension to the urgency ordinance that's in your packet. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark at this time before we open the public hearing? Marty?
Quick one. Indoors and outdoors, it's allowed, where previous, no?
No, there indoor cultivation of up to 6 plants is allowed. There is no outdoor cultivation allowed.
Okay.
If the moratorium were to stay in effect.
Got it, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, this time we're going to open the public hearing. Anyone from the public like to speak to us on this issue?
Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. I would like to have you extend the moratorium. We need to know what the state's doing, and there's no urgency to not extend it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yep.
I'll just follow up with what Robert said. It seems like we should know what the state's going to do before we adopt something before.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if I close the public hearing, you're going to be precluded from speaking to us again on this.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion is second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any discussion or action by the council? Rico?
Does this just take a motion, or
Yes, it would be a motion to extend the interim emergency ordinance as presented in the packet.
I would move to go ahead and extend the moratorium.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to extend the moratorium. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Okay,
opposed?
For the
Okay.
record, that's unanimous. Thank
It's
you.
unanimous, right. Great. Item 8B, we're going to hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution amending the master fee schedule related to construction, water meters, and backflow device inspections, and conduct a discussion regarding building permit fees previously approved by the City Council.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, the master fee schedule compiles City Council approved fees for city services provided to residents and other members of the public. The 2017-18 master fee schedule update was approved by City Council resolution on June 13th of this year. And as a result, updated fees for fire, police, recreation, and community development have been in place since July 1st. At the time that the City Council approved these fee increases, the Council requested consideration of two additional fees related to Appendix 1 of the Master Fee Schedule for water service. These included adding a charge related to construction water meters, and secondly, a new fee related to inspection costs for backflow devices. At the same time, on June 13th, the City Council voted to revisit the approval of the building permit fees and asked for additional information on the fee increase to assist City Council discussion. As it relates to construction water meters, the city provides construction water meters upon request to contractors operating in the city. In accordance with the fee schedule, the city collects and holds deposits equal to the cost of the meter, and then the contractors are charged for both water service charge and the quantity charge for water used, similar to any other customer. The only difference is the contractor is billed monthly for the service charge, and then the quantity charge is charged when the meter is turned in before the deposit is returned. They are charged the quantity charge. We checked on a number of agencies in San Mateo County, South City, Millbrae, Burlingame, Redwood City, and all of these agencies charge in similar manner to what the city San Bruno currently does. There was a question of on June 13th, there was a question about including an additional charge, a rental charge, or some form of charge. The City Council Utilities Subcommittee, Councilmember O'Connell and Councilmember Marty Medina met on August 23rd to discuss adding a fee for the ability to use construction water meters. The committee, I'll allow them to speak for themselves, but just in very summary form, felt that a fee that would recoup the city cost for connecting and disconnecting these construction meters to the hydrant was an appropriate charge. And looking into what that cost would be, staff determined that the cost would be a charge of $125 for the connect and disconnect charge. On the, and I'll go through my report, and then if the committee would add to my comments, I would appreciate that. As it relates to inspection costs for backflow preventers, back in November of 2016, the City Council adopted an ordinance establishing water supply cross-connection and backflow prevention standards, designated the city as an administrative and enforcement authority, and setting inspection, testing, and maintenance and reporting procedures. The city itself has a very definitive interest in the backflow prevention devices operating properly to avoid any contamination to our water supply. So this effort has been really a state requirement, but the city itself has strong interest in a robust and effective program. At that time, back in November, while the city has these interests, the City Council did approve a contract with the San Mateo County Environmental Health Services with the county to actually complete the inspections, testing, and all of the various mandated reporting requirements to the state and otherwise. So there is a requirement. In addition to anything that the city or county require, there is a requirement the device owners themselves to arrange for testing of all of these devices done on an annual basis with reports submitted to the county. And the device owners are responsible for the cost. Every one of them is responsible for the cost of these inspection services. The total cost that the city of San Bruno has agreed to pay the county for their overall inspection and compliance services is $42,500. Again, back on June 13th, there was a question raised by the council about our ability to recoup that cost of $42,500 in some manner from these device owners. Again, the subcommittee met, and staff had determined that two approaches, if there was a desire on the city council's part to actually have such a fee. One approach would look at the 50 annual surveys that are done by the county and to charge for those 50 field surveys done by the county, and just dividing 50 into the 42,000 would be a charge of about $850. So that was one approach that was looked at if there was a desire to have such a fee. An alternative approach resulted what was reported to be an annual cost of about $140, and that was really based on information that I understood, staff understood at the time, was that there were a total of 300 devices that require inspection in San Bruno. Since the committee meeting, I've now come to understand that I was incorrect. That the number of devices, it is true, there's about 300 backflow devices at meters in the city, but there's an additional about 200 backflow devices that are not connected at the meter that would be at some other location. And so there's actually a total of 500 devices that require inspections. So again, your material, if the council would want to have such a fee, I had included the charge of $140, but if they wanted such a charge, I think the more appropriate charge would be $85 if that 500 devices was divided among there. As far as the utility subcommittee is concerned, they did not reach a consensus recommendation on the fee. One committee member believed that, as consistent with other San Mateo County cities where there is no charge or there is not a recouping of this charge, the county charge, that there should be no fee. And then the other committee member, again, recommended that this $140 charge would be appropriate. And again, if you wanted to go forward, my new thought would be it should be 85 rather than 140. So, and again, would allow the committee to speak on that matter. If I could just continue on and just give some additional information related to the building permit question. The agencies are allowed to set fees that do not exceed the cost of providing the service. And there are really a number of ways that is done. One is through a cost of service study. And then those are done periodically by most agencies. There's a cost of service study. Beyond that, annual changes could reflect the change in inflation, change in CPI over a period of time, the change in the direct cost for the service, or surveys of nearby jurisdictions and charges that they have. And since the City Council formally adopted the master fee program and annual reviews in 2001, the City Council has selected one of those three options: inflation, direct cost of service, or surveys of other jurisdictions in setting fees on an annual basis. In 2006, the City of San Bruno retained a consultant to perform a cost of service study directly related to building or to community development fees. And in January of 2007, the building fees were adjusted based on that study. And the fees have not been adjusted. Building permit fees have not been adjusted since January of 2007. The community development staff recommended on June 13th that building permit fees be adjusted based on a survey of several other San Mateo County cities. Redwood City was looked at and had some of the highest fees, while Burlingame was the lowest of those that they surveyed. Several cities fell in between those two. The department recommended that San Bruno's fees be adjusted generally in line with the lower fees that are in place at the city of Burlingame. And across the peninsula, low fees are not really correlated with more development activity, and higher fees are not associated with less development activity. The net impact of changing the fees and increasing the fees was an 18% increase in revenue from building permit fees. So generally, the general increase was about 18%. Staff did compare for the prior year total expenditures in the building inspection division compared with total revenues, and there was a substantial shortfall. And even if one would eliminate from the calculation code enforcement positions in the division and factor in the increase, the total fees generated are less than the cost of providing the service. As I mentioned, historically, the council has looked at other indices or changes in looking at fee adjustments. So alternatively to the 18% increase based on survey results, if the council had considered changes in CPI since 2006-7, since 2006-7, there's, in those indices, there's been a 26% increase over that time, exceeding the 18% that was approved. If the city council alternatively, again, had looked at the direct cost of service, looking at the total compensation and the change in total compensation for a building inspector position since 2006-07, the salary and benefit costs have increased by 50% since 2006-07. Again, less than the 18% adjustment that was approved by the council. So in summary, I mean, it is the city council that determines the appropriate fee for all city services. But facts determine what is fair and reasonable, and there is no evidence that the building permit fee increase approved by the council on June 13th are anything but fair and reasonable. The evidence does not support any concern of gouging residents. Further, there is no evidence that the building permit fee increase will slow development activity. Many, many, many factors go into decisions on development locations, and this increase, again, less than the cost of the city providing the service, would reasonably have no impact on the level of development activity anticipated within the city. Finally, the finance department for several months now, and got diverted for a couple of reasons, unfortunately, is undertaking a cost allocation and a cost of service study, and the department will commit that this study will be completed in 2018 in time to be fully evaluated and considered prior to commencing the 2018-19 budget process, which would include, again, the consideration of any changes in all departments in the master fee schedule. With that, I would answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for Jim this time? No? Okay, at this time we're going to open the public. You have a question? Go ahead.
I was wondering if there was going to be any questions on the backflows, the meters. 'Cause if not, I'd like to make my point on why I was, I guess, consistently against the raising of building permit fees. And my question to Jim and possibly to other staff is, has there been a calculation of direct cost for a building inspection based on the cost of a building permit? Because in the staff report, the building permit fees were raised because they hadn't been raised in a significant amount of time. Had no study on the actual costs. And so, a lot of your dissertation was based on direct cost of service. So my argument for many years now has been, has there been a study of direct cost of service of a building inspector per project? Building permit fees are calculated based on valuation, not on how many inspections a particular project gets. The inspector gets paid based on their delivery of services inspecting a project, and as many times can inspect many projects, throughout the day. And in some cases, a project that has been valued at a certain amount in comparison to another project does not get any more inspections than the other, even though the permit fee is significantly higher. So this is just, my soapbox, because it's prevalent in almost, every, municipality. And although it may be true that certain cities are more than others, it's still based on the same criteria, valuation, and then they come to a cost of the project or value of the project, and they plug in where it falls within the table in the fee schedule. Nowhere does it determine what the cost of labor, what the cost of the employee for that project. So that's just my point. To say that, that we're coming up short, a 50% increase in building inspector salaries and benefits, and only an 18% increase is inaccurate. It's inaccurate because it's not the same calculation. And I'm done. That's my point. I'm not saying that we're gouging people or anything. I'm just saying that the system gouges, does not, is not based on the actual cost.
So I guess I'm struggling to answer part of your question because just of the way you worded the question. So the last time, as I said, the last time that a cost of service study was done related to building permits was in 2006, and the result of that study was implemented in January of 2007 in the master fee schedule. I guess where I'm struggling with, and just the methodology. The methodology is taking the direct cost of providing the service and any and all overhead cost for the individual providing the service, the cost of the car, the cost of the city council taking actions, anything related to anything related to the human resources costs, anything related to the cost of providing that service is included as overhead. And that is the basis on which cost of service studies are done everywhere. I mean, that is the basis. I sort of thought your question was, does the consultant or do they go out and do a time and motion study of what the inspector actually does and how much time they spend on a particular job? That is not the methodology that is universally used. And so, if that results in your mind in a false fee, that's probably true. But what is done is capturing all of the direct costs and all the overhead costs of providing the service. And I would say
Mr.
that's,
O'Leary,
again,
I can
universally
appreciate
the way it's
how
done.
you're trying to justify how we've come up with the fees, or in perpetuity here for as long as it's been involved. But no other department does that. And I mean, and I've been in business for over 30 years, and I've never understood why a permit fee, even a plan review fee, is based on a value. It's based on a value, and there is no calculation of how much actual time is spent in performing the service. Throw in all the overhead that you want into that. But I would venture to guess that there has been no cost allocation study of even a handful of projects that have been charged plan review fees and permit fees.
Could I just ask for clarification here? Are you suggesting that other municipalities charge based on numbers of inspection or time and work?
No, I am not. I know
they charge based
every
on,
probably 99.9%
based on valuation.
is based on valuation.
Same as we do it.
Same as we do.
Right,
yeah.
and
maybe there's probably a smaller community that
right.
Can have a fixed fee or a more adjusted fee based on the type of project.
Right.
But
right. So the cost evaluation is done based on, as the director indicated, based on the direct and indirect costs associated with delivering inspections, and the valuation collection, or the collection based of building permit fees based on valuation, is done as a standard in the industry, based on a proxy, if you will, for the complexity of the various inspections. As you know, the number of inspections, the actual precise number of inspections can be estimated based on the complexity of the project. There's at least X number of inspections that would be required. But the actual number of inspections for this project or that project of similar type may actually be very different. And so the building permit fees, as you indicate, are based on project valuation. I'm assuming in order to essentially level the playing field and provide a standard basis for collection, our evaluation is done through the cost of services study in order to demonstrate that we are not collecting more than the actual, in this case, aggregate cost of delivery of the service. And I believe that is also the standard by which other municipalities evaluate their costs and set their fees, as is the collection.
There are two costs that I'm familiar with. The cost, the cost of construction that the city abides by or calculates the valuation, whether it's new construction, remodel construction, and they calculate, you can determine the amount of, the scope of the project, and then you can determine, what that value of construction will be. It's the table that you apply that valuation to, which is what the 18% increase was. So now you've got this value of a project, and now that table, what that rate is based on the value of the construction is where I'm questioning things, and how is that developed? And so what you're saying, and I have to agree, I have to accept it, is that cost is an accumulation of the overhead and the cost of the cost of the service.
David, did you have a comment?
I wish I was an expert now, but I'm not. So
no, and
let me
and
try
there's
one
and
more.
it's not going. It's not going to happen now, and it's probably not going to happen in a generation, because this has been going on for years, and that's why I said this is my soapbox. This is my my issue, because I'm sitting up here to make that determination. I don't have that opportunity in other
I feel better that you said everybody is gouging their residents, rather than just us. That makes me feel better.
And I'm really surprised that Redwood City is there. But
I guess I just wanted to. I guess the question of valuation I understand as it relates to plan check and some other, but the vast majority of the fees that were adjusted on June 13th were for building permit fees for the installation of relocation of a vent, just going through the various building permits and or plumbing, and
you don't want to go down that road, because if you start talking about plan review fee, then you're really going to get me upset, because that's also based on valuation, and it's a percentage of building permit, and that's totally out of character. So it's a calculation that I have to live with, that the residents have to live with, and they have to budget into their development, so into their project. So I gave it my best shot. So.
Okay. Any other questions for staff before we open the public hearing? Marty?
Sorry. So make sure I understand this. So in 2006, the model was completed based on what everybody does, and valuation is included in that. So here we are. We're going to have a new study continuing on that same model. Is that correct?
2006 was cost of service study.
Right.
What was the cost of providing the service?
And we're having another one that'll be due in 2018. Okay. So maybe some analysis at some point of the number of inspections would be helpful to help determine that cost, because I agree, just because everybody's charging it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make sense that, it should be on the number of inspections that your inspector has to go back to do the rough plumbing, all the other inspections they do. So I'm hoping that we'll have some analysis of those costs of services. And the other part, and we're not talking about today, Ken, would be the plan checking, and I agree. Like, it should be based on the actual time that the plan checker is spending to review those plans. That's the cost of the service. All the overhead things, yes, we could, allocate a certain percentage. I don't think anybody would have an argument with that. But based on sole valuation, it seems just wrong. So this new cost of services study, it's just revamping what was done before. Are they going to look at each different type of permit and like, well, that takes 6 inspections and that one takes 3, so just because that's more expensive, it gets the highest building permit fee? It seems like we should have a more defined cost associated for the number of inspections actually incurred. But that's
the current
Right.
the current scope of this study does not include that level of analysis.
Why not?
Because it's not, for one reason, not typically how cost of service analysis is done. It's based on the cost of performing the service, it's not a detailed evaluation of how building service, the building inspections and projects and what the building code requires with respect to inspections for a project. It's based at a different level in order to validate that the city is essentially not charging more than the cost of the service. I don't know, again, neither Mr. O'Leary or I are experts in this field, but we could certainly talk to the consultant who is performing this study to get a better idea of whether that is an analysis that they could perform and whether that could be included within the existing scope. Right. I can tell you that it is not now included in the existing scope.
Getting to hear what that would be and how much it would cost would be, I think, valuable to bring back.
We can speak with the consultant about that.
Any other questions of staff before we open the public hearing? All right, this time we're going to open the public hearing. Would anyone from the public like to address the council on this item? Okay, if we close the public hearing, going to be precluded from talking to us again on this item. Any action?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any further discussion or action by the council?
I wanted to touch base on the backflow. It was something that I had brought up to have a better understanding of the $42,500 that we paid to the county. So, in talking to staff, my understanding is, because where I understood it to be when I was in South City, business or anybody in the county, it is required on an annual inspection. It needs to be tagged for that year. 2017, for example, for the County of San Mateo, they're $15 for a backflow tag. County of San Francisco, they're $12. And it depends on jurisdiction on the cost and or free. My understanding is what we have gone to the county to do is that out of the 300, which is now 500, but the 300 that are gone to the meters, about 50 of those are on a rotation type cycle. That they're going back out, and I'm going to say like a trust but verify, and to ensure that everything is working operationally, and again, there's no contamination. Is that accurate?
Let me see if I can clarify. So the contract with the county includes a variety of functions, and the best way to describe that service is backflow program management. That service generally, let me back up just a minute. The annual inspection that is a responsibility of every property owner at a premise where a backflow is required is the responsibility of the property owner that certifying and assuring that the inspection is done by the property owner and is not done directly by the county. The county's contract with the city is to assure that the program overall is managed properly according to state requirements, and that the water supply thereby is being protected from the potential for backflow and contamination of the water supply. The county's work with respect to any particular location would have to do with, as you just indicated, assuring that those inspections are done correctly, that any deficiencies are corrected, that reports are prepared and filed with the state properly for the program overall, and dealing with any issues related to the number of backflows devices, where they need to be located, and again, their proper operations.
Right, so I see this as a two-level. So the homeowner and or a commercial
That's correct.
property has that obligation annually to contract with a private licensed entity
Correct.
that's been approved by the agency, county, to go out there and whatever the fee is by that vendor, and go ahead and certify and tag.
That's correct.
Now, on the other side, the $42,500 is the county that comes in, oversees it, because it's still the vendor's obligation to turn in the certificate forms to the various jurisdiction. So the county's coming in to verify more or less, and to spot check, I'll call it, so many out of the 300 to ensure that it is operating, it is functioning, and there's no contamination. So realistically, whether it was 140, now it's 85, so that went down, that was impressive. So even if it's 85, in essence, a homeowner or business would say, well, now I'm getting hit twice. I've got the county obligation through the state, now I've got the city imposing an additional fee, which even I don't get inspected on an annual basis. It may not be for 5 years. So that's what I wanted to get clarification on, is that. Now, I think we have a better understanding on how that functions. And to my knowledge, too, cities do not go in and say, okay, you already got to pay that, now we're going to pay this. There are some jurisdictions that actually will offer these backflow tags for free. Only a couple, but there are a couple in the county. So I think that helps me understand better that clarification.
There's just one fairly modest clarification to what you just said. All of that is actually our understandings of the program match. The responsibility for program management and for assurance to the state of the safety, the security, and lack of contamination in the water supply is the city's. The city is the water supplier, the water purveyor, and it is our responsibility to assure that the program operates correctly, reports are filed properly, and that the system is...
And you're right, because it is our water company, so we have an obligation
It
to
is
that,
our
yes.
obligation, and we contract for the oversight of that program on our behalf to the county. So the county is working for us in terms of to assure that the water system is meeting its obligations
compliant.
and being compliant. Right.
Anything else? Marty?
So I was in favor of having to charge for this service. The way I looked at it was, if you don't have a backflow device, great. Most of us don't. Out of 12,000 accounts, we have 500 of them. And this cost is associated with making sure that that cross connection doesn't happen, where we're going to get some water seeping back into our sterile system. So that cost, in my opinion, should be borne by those that are getting that service. It's great that it's reduced down from 140 to 85. I think that's good to hear. But in cost recovery, as we raise our rates for our residents, I think it's very important that we make sure that what they have to pay is just for that service that they get, it's not the 43,000 because I don't have a water backflow preventer. I mean, if you have one, you should be paying for that service, and that's why I brought it forward to think that we should be paying, or we should be charging those that have them well, now it's $85 yearly fee.
Irene?
And I was the person who said no. So I will, my reasonings was that with this, okay, so it's less, you would pay 80, but you would pay 80 a year even though you may not get an inspection within 5 to 6 or even 10 years since there's 500 backflow. So you can pay $80 a year for 10 years and get one inspection. Is that correct?
Or not? Yes, it is correct.
Okay, so to me, I'm paying for something I'm not getting. And that's one aspect of it. And then the other aspect of it is the reason to have the backflow device and the inspection is to protect the rest of us, the water supply for the rest of us, for all of us, not just for that one person. So those were my reasonings for why not to put this fee onto the users or the people who have backflow devices.
If I could clarify again, just perhaps it's just terminology. There is the potential for the county to perform service to assure that your backflow at a particular premise, to assure that you are being compliant and your backflow is compliant with state regulations and requirements. However, the county contract is really more properly, I would say, defined as assuring that those who have the potential of creating impact to the system are managing those backflow devices and avoiding that impact properly. So it's not really, they're not receiving a service per se. They are being, if the $85 was approved, that cost would be related to their impact on the system, or the potential for their impact on the system, as opposed to specifically, as you point out, the service that they receive, because actually if there's a possibility that they don't get inspected if they are trouble-free and don't rise to the level of something that needs to be addressed at that particular location over a long period of time.
So it's up to the rest of the council. That was our reasoning.
Okay. Rico, how do you feel about it?
No, specifically on the backflow? Is that what you're asking me, or just
Yes.
in general? I mean, as far as there was two recommendations. One, I concur with the subcommittee on the first one that was discussed. And on the second one, I was trying to understand the backflow. But what I do have a hard time is that they already have an obligation for an annual cost, and then to almost like it's, okay, so you've got a backflow which helps a lot of people, and now you're getting a second charge for having that in addition to what you already pay for to the county, and you don't even get it. Out of 7 years, you may not see it once. So it is an obligation of us having our water company to meet that obligation and the state requirements. So for that, unless we get out of the water business, we have that obligation as a city and as owning our water department. So I almost see it as a double hit to a person with a backflow device. So I would be satisfied at this time with the commentary and not to charge an additional charge to those that have backflow devices that are already paying for annual certifications.
Okay. I agree. Ken?
I think what we're saying is that we're in favor of the recommendation for the construction meters.
No, this is just backflow.
Well, they're both lumped into the one staff report, so. But I agree on what Rico said.
Okay. Which is the same as Irene, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Anything else? Go ahead.
well, that was do you want that as a separate vote?
How do you want that? Do you want that as a separate item, Mark, or? Yeah.
It'd probably be helpful to have a separate vote on the two items, just so a voice vote would be fine.
Okay.
Okay, but we're looking for a resolution here?
So,
And they're both included in the resolution.
To the chair.
Marty?
I'd like to introduce the resolution to increase the construction water meter costs as specified in the report.
Councilmember Marty Medina.
Thought we're going to voice.
Councilmember Rico Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ibarra.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.
So we just leave it?
Can we introduce it? We can introduce it.
So the
resolution as well.
We just approved one part.
Okay.
Councilmember Medina only introduced a resolution with one of the items.
Right.
Oh, okay. So
Can we just have a motion, Mark? We can
yes,
vote
so
on
if
it.
the council is interested in imposing the backflow prevention device fee, then there should be a motion to do so at the reduced level of, was it 85?
But if it's not going to be, does it have to be a motion if it's?
There's no change.
But if there's no change?
If there's no change, then I don't think there's any
Right.
need for an action.
Okay.
Through the chair, I'd like to introduce a resolution to have inspection costs for backflow devices.
Well, introduced a resolution for that, so we need a roll call.
Councilmember Marty Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Rico Medina.
No.
Councilmember O'Connell.
No.
Vice Mayor Ibarra.
No.
Mayor Ruane.
No. Item number 9 is public comment on items not in this agenda. It is the council's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and interaction where appropriate. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting on any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. Would anyone like to address the council under public comment? Just tell us your name and your street, please.
Good evening, council members and the mayor. I'm speaking on behalf of my friend, Mr. Mani, and this is the item at issue is rental property at 249 Santa Lucia, 253 Santa Lucia Avenue. The city of San Bruno has still having litigation on this property for last 20 years. It hasn't been resolved. And this new buyer is being part of this litigation process. In the meantime, the code enforcement people overreached their jurisdiction or duty by going and harassing tenants and telling them that the building is condemned and they should withhold their rent to the landlord. This is uncalled for. This litigation is still pending and the city attorney is aware of this issue. So I'm asking the council to instruct the code enforcement people to cease and desist until the resolution has been resolved by the Superior Court of San Mateo.
All right, thank you. We can't really act upon anything this evening because it is not on the agenda.
Yes.
But we'll follow through with the city attorney.
Yeah, it's an issue that needs to be addressed, and the employees of the code enforcement overreaching their duty is uncalled for.
All right, we'll look into it. Thank you. Anyone else under public comment? You want a quick break? We're going to take a 3-minute break.
better use it.
Hey, O'Leary.
Hey, Jim,
some business here. Our first item is to receive an oral report and review the status of the local emergency related to the truck collision at the Senior Center and continuing declaration of local emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I believe I have some elements of good news for you tonight on this report. There are two components of this project that I'd like to report on tonight. The first is the construction of a temporary wall to expand the usable area of this main room, both for senior programming as well as for meetings and other activities during the continued construction to repair the damaged portion of the Senior Center building. The second item for the report tonight is that bigger picture issue of the completion of the building repairs. So starting with the wall, we've solicited and received 3 quotes for construction of the temporary wall, and they covered a fairly wide range of cost, but we have entered into a contractual agreement. That agreement has been signed in the amount of $4,600. Contractor believes that work can be completed in approximately 1.5 days, and the work will begin on Thursday. So we are confident and pleased to be able to say that work will be done by the next time we gather, and it will be done well before then. That's correct. And the space will be available as the report that you received earlier this evening from the Senior Advisory Board. That space will be available not necessarily to relocate the lunch program or other programs that are currently being delivered in the recreation center, but to be available for classes that are currently occurring here, dance classes and others, along with the Thursday night bingo program that is conducted by the independent not-for-profit Senior Nutrition Program as their fundraising event. And again, that cost of $4,600 is being paid by the insurance as part of the overall restoration of the building and coverage of costs associated with programming at the Senior Center. The repair work for the stage area that was damaged in the truck accident in June, we have also just recently received 3 cost proposals. We're awaiting a 4th proposal, which we hope will be forthcoming very soon. Though there is a fairly significant spread, again, in those costs, up to a high of almost $400,000. We believe that, and based on the quotes that we've received so far, that the work can be completed for substantially less than that, and as soon as we've completed, along with the insurance adjuster, as soon as we've completed evaluation of those quotes and identified the preferred contractor, we will commence the contract procedures, get a contract in place, and look forward to reporting to you an actual schedule for the construction at a subsequent update. As you heard from the Senior Advisory Board this evening, the Advisory Board is recommending and agreeing to fund $40,000 for the cost of replacing the flooring in this room. We're currently working with the city attorney and with the contractors to determine whether we can efficiently include that work in the overall restoration project. That cost will not be covered by insurance, but would be a separate cost. But we believe that the work could potentially most efficiently be done by the selected construction contractor, and if we can do that, we believe that it will be least disruptive to programs and operation of the center, get the project done all at once instead of having a trailing issue that might cause an additional time period for completion of the project. But we'll be able to report on that to you at our next scheduled report in 30 days.
Through the chair.
Ken?
Yes, thank you. Great news. I was also going to ask if there was any other projects, in the facility that could possibly be incorporated. I think it's very wise that the floor, take care of the floor now. But I was just wondering if there's anything, say, within the kitchen or the roof or anything that you might consider.
So there are numbers of interests that have come up through the conversations with the Senior Advisory Board over time. And at this point, I'm not aware of any projects that have a funding source and that would be able to be completed efficiently as part of this project, but I will relook at that issue with staff. There aren't any other projects that I'm aware that could be included in the insurance, at the cost of the insurance company, so those would need to be covered by us. And I think at this point, our primary interest has been expediency in getting this done. We're continuing to receive fairly significant public comment and interest in getting the center back into full operation. Again, providing the temporary wall will go a little ways towards alleviating the pressure on programs and operations, but still we're anxious to get the building done and back in full operation.
So you do still anticipate that beginning of the year will be fully functioned?
That is my current estimate and goal. It'll take us a little while to get performance bonds and all of the requirements for contracts in place, but I think we're very, very close to being in a position to select the contractor, agree upon a price, and initiate contract proceedings, and then it will be up to the contractor and staff to determine what how quickly the work could start and how quickly the contractor can get it done.
Thank you.
And then, obviously, we'll update the capacity for the seating and standing by the fire department?
That's correct.
Thank you.
It's updated. Marty?
So before we had a single contractor that was going to be doing the work, that's what I recall. And now we're going out to bids, which is, I do like that. So did I misunderstand, like earlier on, that we were kind of letting this one specialty contractor do everything, and then apparently we got a really high bid probably to go out? So I wonder if you could just kind of, shed a little bit light on that.
Sure.
How that's working out.
Yeah, so we had initially anticipated using the restoration contractor that responded the day of the truck accident. We were frankly disappointed to find that their cost, which we solicited first, came in well above, and that it was not a bid. We're not using the formal public bidding process, and that's the opportunity that we're taking advantage of by using the emergency declaration. That's the purpose of our every 30 days reports to you, is to continue that city council declared emergency situation. The construction cost from that contractor is the high one that I indicated previously. That amount was well above our staff's estimate of the appropriate cost and the insurance company's adjuster's estimate of what it should take. So we've sought other cost proposals and found that we were correct, that it can be done for substantially less. And so we're continuing to work in that direction.
Okay. And these are union or prevailing wage contracts? In emergencies, we still have to?
Absolutely,
okay.
Yes. The project will be completed using prevailing rate. It still is essentially public money. It's a project that's being done for the city, so we're required to pay prevailing rate.
Thank you for getting the bids.
Anything else? Our next item is to adopt a resolution approving amendment to the fiscal year 2017-22 capital improvement program to include the Crestmore Canyon Slope Improvements Feasibility Study, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Cotton Shires and Associates, Inc. to complete the feasibility study in an amount not to exceed $23,500 and appropriating $23,500 from the Capital Improvements Reserve.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Recently, staff received inquiries from residents regarding the condition and stability of San Bruno Avenue adjacent to Crestmore Canyon. And this project is in front of you tonight is to evaluate the hillside erosion issues and recommend mitigation measures to stabilize the erosion. So here's the area map of the location of the canyon that's attached in your staff report. It's attachment number 2. The canyon it's bounded by San Bruno Avenue, Glenview Drive, Crestmore Drive, Interstate 280, and then a little bit of Sneak Lane. The area within this canyon is heavily vegetated and has been used as a drainage discharge area over many years. The hillside erosion issues within the Crestmore Canyon has been evaluated in the past, where the city hired the firm Cotton Shires and Associates to perform the study to identify and evaluate the landslide and slope stability conditions and drainage control issues. The study was completed in 2008. Through their visual investigation and review of topo maps and geological conditions, they identified 9 sites, including 2 sites adjacent to San Bruno Avenues, which are considered to have erosion or potential erosion. And the report also identified the types of hazards, relative risk level for each site, ranking from low, moderate to high, and recommended actions, and along with the estimated cost for the recommended improvements. Earlier this year in March, staff requested Cotton Shire to perform a reconnaissance of the roadway, slope, and drainage conditions located along the San Bruno Avenue from Glenview Drive and Crestmore Drive. And the slide shows the 2 locations where they performed the reconnaissance. At Site 1, the drainage discharge has, they noticed that it was significantly increased in erosion and the slope failure since the 2008. And at Site 2, the firm determined that there was no recent slope movement, and the pavement along San Bruno Avenue identified no major changes to the pavement surface since 2008. So the study concluded that San Bruno Avenue does not appear to be at immediate risk, but for future erosion and slope failure may ultimately migrate towards the roadway unless appropriate remediation steps are taken. And since Cotton Shire has extensive knowledge of the canyon issues due to their past evaluation and assessment, staff requested the firm to submit a proposal to provide geotechnical and civil engineering services for development mitigation measures to stabilize the erosion to prevent future risk to San Bruno Avenue and address the storm drain discharge issue as well. The scope of work includes preparation of a topo site map, completing 3 subsurface explorations, borings to a depth of about 20 feet to determine the soil properties, because it was not performed during the 2008 study. Laboratory testing and geotechnical analysis and of the laboratory test results, and summary report that will include alternatives for the mitigation. Some of the mitigation measures that will be considered include relocation of the drainage outfall, grading solution to stabilize over the steep slopes, retaining wall solutions to stabilize the slopes, and other measures to control erosion. So the conceptual estimates will also be provided for each mitigation alternative, and staff will work closely with the firm to discuss their finding and mitigation measures. Once the alternative is selected, staff will come back, staff will issue a request for proposal for design services and return to council to award the design contract. The schedule to complete this work, the study, is about 4 months. Since the project was not included in CIP, staff is requesting an amendment into the CIP, the 2017-22 fiscal year CIP, to include the study, and requesting an allocation of $23,500. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anything for staff? Ken?
Familiar with with these types of studies and things, but also have experienced that the cost estimates from the geotechnical consultant is really conservative. And so I was wondering, when the time comes, when you are faced with these potentially some of these mitigations or repairs, how will you go about that? You will obviously have a engineer on staff, you'll have an estimate, a construction estimate. Will you bring, true, foundation engineering, engineers involved to really design this thing?
Right, so the first step of the work is to come up with the mitigation measures, and once we determine the actual, the most feasible and cost-efficient alternative, then we will go ahead with the design, which we will develop a better, through using a structural engineering firm and civil engineer firms to get.
That's
better.
what I was getting
Right.
at. Is that
There's a
not
two-step
necessarily?
process.
I mean, I trust the geotechnical consultant, knows what they're doing, and will give a very good indication on what needs to be done. It's the structural engineers that really need to take a look at it and achieve what the consultant is trying to get across.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Action by the council? It's a resolution.
I'll introduce the resolution.
Vice Mayor Ibarra?
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Rico Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Mayor Ruane?
Aye. Our next item is to approve a design and adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a construction contract with St. Francis Electric LLC for the Mills Park Neighborhood Streetlight Conversion Project in an amount not to exceed $697,300, approving construction contingency of $104,595 and appropriating $442,762 from the Capital Improvement Reserve.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor and members of the City's Council. This topic is in regards to the streetlight improvements on a regulated output on the Mills Park neighborhood. Staff understands that this project is of high importance to the City Council as well as the residents living in the neighborhood, and staff has been continuously working on this project since we knew about the outage. As we recall, we're actually here tonight to provide some good news on this project. Back in July 25th, staff presented the project to council and recommended the City Council to reject the one bid that we received from Tennyson Electric in the amount of about $1,589,000, which is approximately 3 times higher than the engineer's estimate. And staff also presented this item at the special council meeting on August 16th to recommend the City Council to exercise the Public Contracts Code 2167 to allow the city with the flexibility in procuring cost proposals for this project. The Public Contracts Code recognizes that on some occasions competitive bidding does not necessarily generate the lowest possible cost for a project, and in these circumstances, the city should not spend more ratepayers' dollars than are necessary to perform the work. The City Council unanimously voted to recommend procuring a contractor pursuant to the Public Contracts Code, Section 2167, and the support by the City Council to reject the initial high bid we received and approve the use of the Public Contracts Code was highly successful. September 15th, the city received 4 proposals ranging in price from approximately $473,000 to $924,000 in comparison to the previous bid of about $1.59 million. The lowest proposal was from Green Tech Industry in the amount of $473,000. The review of the proposal determined that the firm does not meet the city minimum qualifications, and they haven't completed 5 projects for public agencies of similar nature and complexity. The firm also specializes in complete property repair and refurbishment of residential and commercial properties, and they haven't completed a streetlight electrical circuit replacement project. Based on the review of the proposals, staff is recommending St. Francis Electric to provide construction services for the project. Although St. Francis Electric cost is approximately $225,000 higher than the Green Tech Industry, staff is recommending to award the project to St. Francis Electric, as the firm has the qualification and experience to perform the work on this project. In comparison to the previous bid that we received on July 12th, St. Francis cost is approximately about $890,000 lower. St. Francis Electric has completed numerous projects of similar nature, and one of the projects was for our city, which was the installation of the new streetlight circuits when the regulated output circuits failed in the Crestmore 1 and 3 neighborhood. The cost for the proposal for the total work is about $697,000, And they indicated that a cost savings of up to $50,000 is possible if open trench work is reduced by performing trenches construction at certain locations. If awarded, the installation is anticipated to begin in October. Will likely take approximately 110 working days to complete. And there will definitely be some impacts during construction, such as dust, noise, possible parking restrictions, and pedestrian walkway closures. The city will use the city's website to update the residents on the status of the construction work, and this contractor will also send notifications prior to starting work. And since the long duration of the outage has created concerns for the residents in the neighborhood, and staff will be sending letters to residents to provide more information about the work plan and the schedule for the repair of the streetlights. And this concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Good. Anything for staff? Marty?
Yes. Thank you, all right, for saving us at $890,000, right? That's the good news. What this brings to mind now is, you know, we have 400 RO circuits, and we're taking care of 24. And our budget previously was $3.1 million to take care of the 400, and we're spending close to $1 million to take care of 24. So this is, I guess, a wake-up call, possibly, that we, at some point, are going to have to deal with those RO circuits, and it's going to cost substantially more. That bid that I think we were fortunate to be able to get is nearly 5 times the cost that we currently think that we would be charging to do the remaining of them. So I think it's great that we're moving forward with this, but we as a council need to start allocating money, because when a neighborhood goes out, we have to put the lights back on. The other thing that we could maybe look at is thinking outside the box of how maybe we could power individual streetlights with underground from the home, from the residents, to look at what that would require, maybe a separate meter, because this is really expensive. We have to figure out how we're going to do it, and we really don't have the money. We have no money to do this. We don't have money to do our streets, and we have to figure out how we're going to pay for all these critically important safety issues, road issues. So it's something that we probably should start thinking about and figuring out how we're going to pay for it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Action by the council?
I'll introduce the resolution.
Vice Mayor Ibarra?
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Rico Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Mayor Ruane?
Aye. We already did the franchise agreement with Recology, and we'll go to the last item, which is receive a report and provide direction to staff regarding the recruitment process for the city clerk position.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. As you doubtless recall, in 2015, the City Council authorized a measure to be placed on the November 2015 general municipal election ballot to determine whether the position of city clerk and also that of the city treasurer, previously elective offices, should be changed from elective to appointive. That ballot measure was approved by the voters, and as of the expiration of the current incumbent's terms on the first Tuesday of December of this year, those offices will convert to appointive. As the council probably recalls, staff recommended and the city council has previously approved that the duties previously performed by the elected city treasurer will be consolidated into those of the finance staff in our regular finance department. And the duties of the elected city clerk will be transferred to an appointive position according to a position description that was prepared earlier this year and was previously approved by the city council. At the April 11th, 2017 meeting, the City Council considered and approved the plan to have that appointed position appointed by and responsible to the City Council itself. And the City Council provided no specific direction regarding the actual process for recruitment and selection of that position. The current action before you tonight is to consider whether you would like to hire a public sector recruitment firm to assist you with that recruitment and selection of the appointed city clerk. And if so, if you have any specific direction about what firm you would like to utilize and work with. In preparation for such a discussion with the City Council, staff has solicited from 4 firms who are in this business and are, I would say, all very competent and qualified, and with pricing that is generally within a very tight range. That we solicited proposals from 4 firms. We received proposals from 2 firms and have provided in the staff report. I'm happy to go over it if you would like, but the outline of the duties that, or the specific functions that the recruitment firm would provide in assisting you with recruiting and selecting a city clerk. I would point out, because I'm sure it's of important interest to the City Council, that process is expected to take approximately 120 days. And at this time, given that the first Tuesday in December is sooner than 120 days, staff has consulted with the existing elected city clerk whose term will be ending, and she has identified her interest and ability to continue for a short period of time in the function until the City Council has a new position or a new appointee in place to take full responsibility for the city clerk's job duties. So with that, staff is available to answer any questions or to accept your direction regarding the process that you would like to utilize.
Okay, any questions for staff?
I'm going to comment on some of this stuff, and I'm not questioning any of the essential duties and responsibilities, but I do point to the one comment that's halfway down page 2 that says, serve as liaison for the city clerk's office with other city departments, divisions, and outside agencies. As a deciding factor on who becomes a city clerk, as a liaison with the city council and the city, I think it's very important that this is a resident or someone that is very familiar with this community. And to have an elected position that has always been a resident, whether it's been a short-term resident or a long-term resident, at least they had, skin in the game and were part of the community. So I don't know how you're going to word that in your in their selection processes, because other than that, you're probably just going to get a professional or someone that knows the duties but has no idea what San Bruno's about. So that's going to be some of my my concerns as far as the selection process. Yeah. Selecting the right candidate.
Anyone else? Irene?
First of all, I'd like to thank the city manager for taking the initiative to get this information. I know the council as a whole did not give you any direction about this, so I do appreciate that. I think the biggest obstacle that this city council has to overcome, and maybe the city as a whole, that the city clerk, an appointed city clerk, is a professional person. They are not the face of San Bruno. They are not the spokesperson for the city. They are not a lot of things that a traditional elected city clerk has been, at least in San Bruno. So that's not what this city clerk would be doing. This city clerk would be doing the professional job that we have listed out and we approved before. So I'm afraid that there probably isn't anybody in San Bruno that necessarily has these skills. I mean, part of the job description and the experience has to be a degree, has to have a more progressive experience doing a city clerk job. And unless Vicki Hachey has any interest in applying for that job, I think she's the only one in San Bruno that has had that experience. And she's sitting there looking at me blankly, so I'll stop now. Anyway, I don't think living in San Bruno is necessarily a thing to bring to this job. Anybody who gets this job would learn the city very quickly. I'm still against the city council appointing. I don't think that's something that is wise to do, so I'm going to vote against doing this at all because I don't think we should be doing it.
Question to the city manager. I know the council voted majority to have the city council appoint the city clerk, but if a manager was to appoint the city clerk, would there be cost savings? Would you go through the same procedure?
So typically, if for staff positions, our Human Resources Department conducts the recruitments. They are very busy. They do this essentially all day, every day, because we always have position vacancies. So we typically do that in-house and do not hire a recruitment firm to assist. So yes, we have the ability to do it, and yes, it is substantially cheaper to do it the way I would normally do it.
Okay. And I agree with Irene. I told you my reasons why I believe it. The manager, he or she going forward, whoever that happens to be, should appoint, because this is not a political appointment. I'm afraid it's going to be a political appointment when the council appoints this person. And if there ever is a conflict between the manager and the city clerk, what are you going to do? That's the question I have. What are you going to do? It's not the right thing to do, and I don't think it's prudent for the city to do this. So you're not looking for a motion. I'm just saying I'm against spending any monies for recruitment because I spoke my piece before. Marty?
So there is a budget, right? So we have $35,000 that was planned to do this regardless. It was budgeted. And I think we should go with the one with the fixed cost. That's Ralph Anderson and Associates.
I'm sorry, that is correct. Yeah, the one firm proposed, one firm proposed a fixed cost, fully inclusive of expenses and time, and the other consultant proposal that we received estimated costs. And so the costs you see in the staff report, they're actually pretty close to one another, but one has estimated out-of-pocket costs and one has a fixed fee.
Okay. Rico?
I would also, as city manager, would suggest out of the two, go with the fixed cost, which is Ralph Anderson and Associates. And I think you had alluded that was what suggestion you would give out of the two.
I would suggest that one out of the two, primarily because in the process of getting the proposals, that firm demonstrated a stronger level of interest. They were Johnny on the spot and followed up a couple of times in the process. So I would just say they've demonstrated a strong interest in doing the recruitment.
Okay, thank you.
I concur.
Okay, so you have your direction.
Yeah, if I could just make one comment, responding to the council's comments regarding the residency of the city clerk. I just want to be clear that that is not a part of the it's not a requirement as part of the adopted job description that the city council previously approved. However, what will happen when we bring the recruiter on board is that one of the first things that they will do is sit down with the city council and talk to you about what are your interests in this position, what are the desirable qualities and characteristics of the person that you would eventually like to appoint. And so they'll develop a candidate profile that goes beyond the technical qualifications that are articulated in the job description. And that will give you an opportunity to have that kind of a conversation and to set those expectations about what in broad scope you're looking for. So I believe my direction is to seek to enter into a contract with Ralph Anderson Associates and then to bring back that process and timelines or to facilitate that relationship with the consultant to get that done.
Okay.
So does that mean that you need to bring back the contract
to
the council for council action, or can this move forward?
No, if you make a motion this evening, you could approve it tonight.
And that would allow the city manager to proceed?
Right.
So moved.
Second?
So motion is second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No. Okay. Item number 11, we already had the report from the Senior Advisory Committee. 12, comments from council members. We're going to receive an oral report from Councilmember Irene O'Connell on her attendance at the annual League of California Cities Conference held in Sacramento, California on September 13 to 15, 2017.
Thank you. I attended 8 sessions ranging from a session about Senate Bill 1, which is called Funding Fix for California Roads. That bill will hopefully realize us at least another $1 million for local street and road repair per year, so that's good news. Plus there'll be money for competitions for projects for street and roads. So that's a hopeful thing. There was also a session on Proposition 64, and it talked about, of course, the Marijuana Act and the ramifications of that. A couple interesting things that we hadn't discussed, which we probably will at some point. One of the things that was brought up was the additional training that firemen would need to go through if we approved any commercial uses and commercial distributions because of the oils that considers hazardous waste, so they have to have a special training in how to deal with that. Also in the distillation of the oils from it, they have to use propane, so there's all these different ramifications that nobody's really talked about, so that was in there. Another thing was effective public presentations, which was about PowerPoint, so we'll see that next time. One was about fireworks, which talked about the impacts of enforcement and challenges and what city officials should know. And there was about 50 different cities represented there. And we are the only city that has figured out to recharge or to charge back to the nonprofits the cleanup and enforcement fees. So I shared that with some of the people, and they were kind of surprised. And I said, it's worked for a long time, and it's very effective. So that was a good thing. Another was reducing pavement life cycle costs and greenhouse gases. And I have a bunch of information about that, which was also fascinating. Another was libraries, centers for workforce and economic development, which we do some of, but this was a kind of a different way to look at it. Another was crisis management for cities, which our city manager was on the panel, which was, she was an excellent speaker and had some fascinating questions that she answered. I also listened to 2 keynote speakers and visited over 180 vendors, which I brought back a stack of information to the city manager. So, that's what I did on my 2 days.
Good, thank you. Any other comments from council members?
Through the chair. Irene?
Yeah.
Thank you for attending and representing.
Oh, and I did do the voting too.
Good job. Marty?
Got two announcements. Both are occurring at the American Legion. On Saturday at 9:30, there's the all-you-can-eat breakfast. It's a great deal, $10 and made-to-order omelets, and I'm going to be hopefully being able to cook again there. They let me do it last time, and I didn't get fired. So the second event there is October 1st at 2:30. There's a candidate forum. Should go to 2:30 to 4 o'clock. So if you wanted another opportunity to talk to or question all of the candidates, that would be your opportunity. Town hall. Thank you, Robert.
Through the chair, just a request from staff. Is there any update on the rec center pool design or that facility? And if so, if that could be, somewhat, to some extent communicated, to the public.
Absolutely. I can give you 30 seconds on that right now. The request for proposals / qualifications has been distributed to a wide variety of architectural and design firms. I believe there are 30 in total on our list that we've carefully vetted to make sure that they are reasonably nearby, could get to San Bruno, and that they have the in their portfolio similar projects of similar scope and complexity. We have actually been impressed and very pleased with the response that we've received. The proposals are due on October 13th, I believe. We have a scheduled opportunity to meet next week, and we'll provide an opportunity for interested proposers to view our existing facilities and the area of City Park where we intend to construct the new facilities. Just based on the numbers of calls, I did ask our staff in the city manager's office to reach out by telephone to all of the people that we emailed and hard copy mailed to, just to sort of express our interest in coordinating with them and make sure they had received the opportunity. She, in making those phone calls, has received a very positive response, and we've heard from, I would say, a good half dozen or more of them that they are definitely planning to propose. So I think that's actually very good news.
Thank you. And to take that just a little further, I'm going to ask through the chair that David eventually give us some updates. There's a lot of projects that have been reviewed in this community, architectural review, community meetings and things. And if we can get just a little summary of where they are right now, and then also we need to play up the Bay Hill specific plan. I believe that hearings are going to be in October again. I think there's going to be more community meetings. So I don't want the community to lose sight of what's going on and assume what is happening, which means that there's bad information or fake news out there.
We'll do that. Great idea. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Let's go eat.
Meeting is adjourned till October 10th right here.